Hey everyone, welcome to the video. Got my cheat sheet for today's MLB main slate for today on DraftKings. We have a nice 14-game slate for us on Friday, so I'm really looking forward to breaking that down for you guys. Anyway, before we continue, if you could leave a like, subscribe to the channel, hit the notification bell so you don't miss out on my new videos, I would really appreciate that. You can also follow me on Twitter at ChrisPennell16, and if you would like access into my entire MLB sheet and my Slack chat, the link is in the description below for my Patreon. So anyway, let's get into the slate. Let's do a little quick preview of the pitching sheet to see why I like the three pitchers I like. So as of right now, I have Walker Buehler, Julio Teheran, and Drew Smyly. And I will say disclaimer, I don't list more than three guys at each position because then the video could get tedious and long, and I don't want to bore you guys to death, and then it would be an hour long. So I do like more than just three guys at each position. So I just wanted to talk about three guys that I like. I usually try to get like a high-end guy, a mid-range guy, and a value guy, usually. So anyway, let's get into the pitcher sheet to see why I like these guys. So Walker Buehler, Teheran, and Smyly. So up top we have Walker Buehler at 11,500. He's the most expensive pitcher on the slate, coming off that amazing game where he got over 50 points versus the Padres. And he's just been excellent this season. 3.24 xFIP, 29% strikeout rate, an elite 3.8% walk rate, which is best on the entire slate. And really, it's just nothing not to like about Walker Buehler. He's going to be pitching at home. He's a pretty hefty favorite going against the Diamondbacks. Now, is the matchup versus the Diamondbacks the best? No, it's not. But he has excelled in this matchup earlier in the season. I believe it was like on a wacky 3 or 4 game slate. Walker Buehler just absolutely went off versus the Diamondbacks. Now, I know that doesn't pertain to this slate, but I just think Buehler's going to have a pretty solid game here, and he's probably your best bet for points on this entire slate. Now, I will say he's overly expensive, but he is worth it if he gets that 30 to 40 point ceiling, which I think he can do. I mean, his ceiling actually technically is like in the 50s, but that's really hard to do. So I do like Walker Buehler. And then in the mid-range, Julio Teheran, who also don't mind using as your SP1 just because he's going against Miami. So if you look at his numbers this season, he has a really shiny 3.46 ERA, but that is backed with a 5.26 xFIP, which is no bueno. It's a pretty drastic split. That's about 2 points higher than what his ERA is, which means he is getting lucky this season. Now, he has a decent K rate at 21%. It's not the best, though, but he's having some decent games. Hopefully that... I don't think his luck's going to catch up to him in this game against the Marlins. Now, I know what you're thinking. Didn't Dallas Keuchel just get absolutely murdered by the Marlins? And yes, he did. Trust me, I know all about it. I played him. I'm still floating cash somehow. So hopefully John Gray can get his game together. I know he had a really bad first inning. The bats went off, so of course the pitching had to suck because that's how DFS works. A lot of the times, Nick Castellanos wasting a nice Nick Castellanos day, so that sucks. But hopefully we can stay afloat in cash. But anyway. Just the matchup versus the Marlins is what I like. They're a much worse team versus righties. It's not like they're any good versus lefties either, but they strike out more versus righties. As you can see, they have that's the wrong splits. They have a 25.6% strikeout rate to righties, 1.23 ISO, or 0.123 ISO to right-handed pitching, which is worse on the entire slate by quite a big margin, about 20-30 points. Only a 280 team ISO at WOBA and a 75 WRC plus. So all these numbers are very bad versus righties. And I think he's just a fantastic play at this price. Now, I shouldn't say at this price. I think he's a little expensive, but I do think he can get us 15 to 20 points, which is really all we need. Let me unplug this fan so it's too loud. So yeah, I think Julio Teheran's fine. If you want to use him as your SP1 so you don't have to pay all that money for Buehler, I have no problem with that. But if you do want to pay up for Buehler, I think we could pair him with Drew Smyly, who is very cheap, and I think it's a decent spot for him. Now, I know last time out we played him versus the White Sox, and he gave up, 5 runs off a grand slam to Larry Garcia, but he still got 12 points because he has some strikeout upside. He got 7 strikeouts in that matchup, if I believe correctly, and this is a soft matchup for him against the Giants. He's pitching in a pitcher-friendly park in San Francisco, and if you look at the Giants splits versus lefties, it's where you want to use lefties versus San Francisco, basically. As you can see, they have a 24% strikeout to lefties, 1.37 team ISO, 286 team WOBA, and a 77 WRC plus. So most of these numbers are bottom of the barrel. As you can see, it's mostly green bars here. So I don't mind using Drew Smyly at all. 5,800, I can see him gaining some ownership. Because really, if you want to use Buehler or Teheran, and then you use Smyly, you can basically do a lot of the things you want to do with your bats. It's not going to really hinder your offense. So I do like the idea of using Drew Smyly, and I think he's a fantastic play tomorrow. And then, actually, because that kind of makes me want to change my court play. So let's go with Smyly at 5,800. Changing on the fly here. First time we've done that on the cheat sheet. But Drew Smiley's way too cheap in my opinion. 5,800. I think if he gets us 10 points, we're probably gonna be fine. And then it lets us pay up for Bueller or Teheran. So anyway, let's get into the bats now. So at catcher, we have Travis d'Arnaud at 4,400 going against the lefty. We love using d'Arnaud versus lefties. He's been elite versus them this season. Marco Gonzalez is worse versus righties, so I don't mind using d'Arnaud whatsoever. Roberto Perez versus the lefty Devin Smeltzer. He's only 3,600, and Roberto Perez has been very good versus lefties. All these catchers are very good versus lefties. I wouldn't say Jansen's really good versus lefties, but he's better versus lefties compared to righties, and J Happ has not been the best versus right-handed bats this season. So if you want to use Jansen at 3,100, I don't mind that at all. At first base I was having problems with. Usually that's a loaded position, but I'm just going through it. A lot of lefties facing lefties, a lot of righties facing righties, so it's kind of a gross position. So got some cheaper guys here. We have Jesus Aguilar at 3,500 going against Marco Gonzalez. We all know we like to use Aguilar versus lefties, and Gonzalez has been worse versus righties, so this might be a good spot to spend down, and I don't mind Aguilar at 3,500. Paul Goldschmidt at 4K. Now, I don't love picking on Chris Archer because he's got strikeout upside, but he also gives up power too, and especially to righties. So I don't mind using Goldschmidt here, that cheap price tag at 4K. I would say there's strikeout upside here though, so I don't love the matchup, but really there wasn't a lot of first basemen I liked. And Tyler White at 2,400. He is extremely cheap, and that's really the only reason I like him. Going up against the lefty Robbie Ray, should be in the lineup, I would imagine, versus the lefties. So if you want to punt, Tyler White's probably your guy. So let's get into some more fun options. First base felt kind of gross. So second base, we got Whit Merrifield at 4,500. And if you look at the matchup, it looks like Edwin Jackson's going to be pitching for the Tigers. So everyone get happy because we love stacking against Edwin Jackson. He is awful. Arguably the worst pitcher in the entire league. Now, I will say he's projected to be the starter earlier before, I was about to shoot the video, and then the projected probable pitcher changed from Matt Hall to Edwin Jackson, and I got really happy, so I threw in some extra Royals. I already liked the Royals, but I added a few more in the cheat sheet. So Edwin Jackson, is a dumpster fire, especially to righties, but he's not very good versus lefties either. But Merrifield's better versus lefties, but he's no slouch versus righties either. So give me all the Royals in this lineup versus Edwin Jackson. Make sure he is the starter. And the Detroit bullpen is bad too, so it doesn't really matter. And then Ozzie Albies at 4,400 versus Caleb Smith. Now, Caleb Smith gives up a lot of hard contact and power, but he's got a lot of good strikeout upside. And he gives up a lot of fly balls, too. But he gets away with that in Miami, so that's why he's just... it's not like he's a bad pitcher whatsoever. It just really helps that he's in Miami, especially for how his player profile is. But Ozzie Albies is, he's a streaky guy, and right now he's really hot. So I like using... And he's really good versus lefties, so I don't mind using Ozzie Albies. I will say it's not my favorite play because I'm not really looking to stack the... Braves in this matchup, and it's a bad ballpark for hitting, but if you want to one-off Ozzie Albies, I have no problem with that. Or even Ronald Acuna. I don't have Acuna on the cheat sheet, but he's really good versus lefties too. Then Nicky Lopez at 2,700. I originally had Harold Castro in here, and I actually played Harold Castro last night. He ended up just fitting my lineup, and it worked out. But he's really cheap and facing Edwin Jackson, and Nicky Lopez is better versus righties, so don't really need much there to hit value. And then at third base, we have Manny Machado at 4,400 versus Cal Freeland. This is one of the top home run calls of the entire slate. I know we're in San Diego, not Coors, but it's Cal Freeland. Cal Freeland's been awful versus right-handed batters. And Manny Machado is one of the best players in the league versus left-handed pitching. He's absolutely mashing this season. They're ISO around 400, so I do like Manny Machado a lot. Now Hunter Dozier I have as a core play. I will say Machado and Dozier are core plays for me today. And it's a good thing Manny Machado is eligible at shortstop as well too. So, but Hunter Dozier at 4,400 versus Edwin Jackson. Edwin Jackson is reverse splits where he's absolutely awful versus righties. I'm not saying he's good versus lefties, but he's worse versus righties. And Hunter Dozier, I know he just homered twice off of a lefty, Matt Boyd, but Hunter Dozier is better versus righties. So we got two reverse splits guys facing off. I love these kind of matchups, and Hunter Dozier is one of the top home run calls of the slate for me versus Edwin Jackson. And then Vladimir Guerrero Jr. at 4,600. It's not my favorite spot for him, but there is some home run upside versus J Happ. I don't love the Blue Jays stack, but I don't hate it either, and I can see them popping off. They've been pretty good. They got the Domingo Germán after struggling for a few innings, so I don't mind Vlad here. Tons of power versus the lefty. And then shortstop, we have Fernando Tatis Jr. at 5,600. He's really expensive, but he's a righty versus Kyle Freeland, who we love using righties against. Where he's giving up power to both sides of the plate, but he's got a much higher strikeout rate to lefties, and the Padres got plenty of righties here, so I don't mind the Padres stack today. And then Bo Bichette at 4,600. He has been awesome. I believe he homered versus Herman today. He's just on fire. I can see him having quite a bit of ownership tomorrow. I do prefer Manny Machado, but J-Happ's versus righties, so Bo Bichette's been awesome. He's going to be leading off, so give me Bichette. And then, not Bichette. And then Manny Machado we already talked about. And then in the high end outfield, we have Mike Trout at 5,800. It feels like cheating just putting Mike Trout, but I know he's better versus righties, but Brian Johnson is worse versus righties, and Mike Trout can always hit a bomb. And then Michael Brantley at 5,100. He's really expensive, but I will say Dylan Muddy has a much lower strikeout rate to lefties compared to righties. To righties, he's striking out about 29% of the time. He's giving out more power to righties, though, but I think Brantley's got a better chance of making contact. The lefties have a better chance of making contact versus Bundy, and he still gives up some power to them, so I don't mind using Michael Brantley, who's one of the best contact hitters in the league. And then the Red Sox outfield are all in play here, so I don't mind JD Martinez, Andrew Benintendi, and Mookie Betts. They're all in pretty good matchups versus the who is it? I forget for a second. 1 second. They are going up against, Barria. My bad. I was thinking Felix Pena for a second, and I didn't want to mess up. So, they're going against Barria, who is a reverse splits righty. So, JD Martinez and Mookie Betts both profile well. Barria has been really bad versus righties, giving up a really high ISO to, let me check their splits. Check Barria's splits so we can get the exact here. So, Barria versus lefties, he's got a 34% K rate, a 195 ISO, but then if you look to the righties, only a 12% strikeout rate and a 293 ISO. So we do want the righties here. I don't mind Benintendi or Devers if you're going to full stack it, but I do think the righties are in a much better spot. So, JD and Mookie Betts are in fantastic place tomorrow. I know Mookie Betts and JD Martinez were pretty big letdowns, but I think they can bounce back. Then in the mid-range outfield, we have Jorge Soler at 4,600 versus Edwin Jackson. Soler, like Dozier, is much better versus righties. Edwin Jackson is really bad versus righties. So I love Jorge Soler in this lineup. I like Jorge Soler tonight. I guess in the Royals lineup. I guess I'm saying that right. I'm messing up my words tonight. But I think it's a fantastic play, and I just love the Royals stack. And then Ryan Braun at 4,700 facing a lefty, Colby Allard. Don't have a lot of info on him, but his xFIP is around 4, and his ERA is around in the high 5s. So maybe not the worst pitcher, but rookie going against not the rookie. First time, one of the first times he's in the big leagues versus the Brewers lineups. A tall task to ask for a pitcher, so I don't mind Ryan Braun. He's always been really good versus lefties. What Merrifield already talked about versus Edwin Jackson. Then in the value outfield, this is a big slate, so I just threw a bunch of guys on here that I don't mind. We have Aaron Judge, who has been sucking ever since I've been playing him the past few days. It sucks. And Sean Reid Foley has been pretty tough on righties, but it's Aaron Judge at 4,200, so I can see him carrying some ownership. Might be a pretty good fade in GPPs, but I like the price point. Lorenzo Cain, he is injured, but he should be back in the lineup. It said he was available to pinch hit, and he should be back to the lineup on Friday. And, he should have a good spot in the order versus a lefty. Adam Duvall versus the lefty Caleb Smith. Brandon Drury, the righty versus J. Happ. Drury's actually been hitting pretty decently lately if you look at his game logs. Hunter Renfroe, power righty versus Kyle Freeland. Renfroe has 30 homers this season. He's mashing lefties, so do like him. Bryce Harper versus Tyler Beede. If you look at Beede's splits, he's got a 25% strikeout rate to righties, but that comes down to lefties. It's in the low teens, and he gives up more power to lefties. Not a good part for for hitting, but don't mind Bryce Harper at that price point. Will Myers, 4,100, cheap righty versus Kyle Freeland, and then Alex Gordon, 3,800, cheap lefty with the platoon split versus Edwin Jackson. Then if you go to some of the core plays and top stacks, I got Drew Smyly at 5,800, which we changed on the fly during the video. Hunter Dozier at 4,400, Manny Machado at 4,400, and then the top stacks for me are going to be the Royals, the Red Sox, the Yankees, the Astros. I have no Astros listed besides Michael Brantley, but they're all in good spots. They're just really expensive. And then the Padres righties. Anyway, guys, that's all I got for the video. Remember to leave a like, subscribe to the channel, hit the notification bell so you don't miss out on my new videos. I really appreciate that. Follow me on Twitter at ChrisPennell16. And if you want access to the entire MLB sheet and my Slack chat, hit the link in the description below for my Patreon. I wish you guys a great start to the weekend and the best of luck to you tomorrow.